Hey everyone, it's 2020, and you know what that means. Last year's games, throw them in the trash. They're terrible, forget about them. There's new games to play now, and we haven't played most of them, which means that maybe they're the best games we've ever played, maybe? Who knows? There's only one way to find out, and that is to get way too excited about them before they've come out. This is a list in which I've gone through a couple of hundred emails from different developers. I have looked at a bunch of games, I've gotten to play some of them, and basically put together a list of the 25 games that I'm most excited about in the coming year. Specifically, we're talking indie games today. I put little brackets around that 25 because one of them might be an early 2021 game rather than a 2020 game, but here's 25-ish indie games that I am really excited about in the coming 12 months. Weird and unfortunate things are happening. Unity. In Weird and Unfortunate Things Are Happening, you play as Alicia, your everyday cool queer aunt with supernatural powers. When Alicia's niece vanishes off the face of the earth, alongside everyone's memory of her or her town existing, our heroes embark on a quest to a town inhabited by non-human creatures that find it fun to screw with the population for their own amusement. Team up with a gun fanatic who wants to get out of this lost town, a middle school teacher, and your niece to discover what has overtaken the town and how to escape it in one piece. The game has a really lovely art direction and tone, reminiscent of Earthbound and Undertale in places. With the full game estimated to last around 15 hours, there's a lot here that looks really promising. Don't trust me? Well, you don't have to. There's a huge demo online that you can try for free right now. How long? Approximately the first 8 hours of the game. Having played a decent chunk of the demo, the character art portraits are super cute, all of the primary female playable characters are charmingly written, the soundtrack is awesome, and the core gameplay loop is super rewarding. You can try out the demo for free on itch.io right now. Lord Winklebottom Investigates. Cave Monsters. Lord Winklebottom Investigates is an adorable point-and-click adventure game about fancy animal detectives wearing human clothes, speaking with exaggerated British accents, and trying to solve the murder of a very important and rich man, who also happens to be an axolotl. I mean, sort of sums up this one, doesn't it? A comedic adventure game with silly animals all over the place. I know I'm sold. Lord Winklebottom Investigates is due to release in Q3 2020 on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Calico. Cat Bean Games. Look, I don't always want to play games with fail states and negative consequences for failure. Sometimes I just want to escape the world, see some happy, colourful, fluffy things, and imagine the world being okay for a while. During those times, I crave games like Calico. Calico is a day-in-the-life community sim where you live in a remote village full of anime magical girls, with your only task being to rebuild the local cat cafe and make friends with anything fluffy that shows an interest. Calico launches in mid-2020, and I'm so ready for a mid-year boost of in my life. That Tiny Spaceship. We make small games. That Tiny Spaceship is a hybrid visual novel and shmup releasing in 2020. And while those two genres don't often get mashed up together, they do feel like they sit nicely together here. The game, created by a team of LGBT developers, follows the story of 6 playable pilots, all of whom have super cute designs as they live their life as cool space shooter pilots. The shooter sections of the game come with the added challenge of players not being able to simultaneously shoot and move at the same time, adding a strategy element to planning approaches to combat. Boss Game. The Final Boss Is My Heart. Twin Strawberry Games. Okay, I'll be honest. The name of this game was like 90% of the reason I got excited to click on the developer's initial email. That's a really cool name for a game. Coming to PC and mobile in summer of 2020, Boss Game, The Final Boss Is My Heart, is a primarily boss fight focused game in which players control two girlfriends who have taken on work hunting demons to pay their bills. Alternate between chaotic fights with unique boss designs and story sections where you send text to both your friends as well as your enemies. Apparently, along the way, you'll get to prove that love and stubborn optimism can topple any evil, which I feel like we could do with a little more of right now. Spooky Starlets, Tiny Hat Studios. Okay, I'm gonna have a bit of an interesting time covering this particular game because I do not want YouTube to shout at me for what I'm gonna try tastefully to show you here. In Spooky Starlets, you run an adult film studio for cute 2D animated monsters. Using a system of drag-and-drop cards, you can pick stars, locations, and acts to be engaged in before watching a vampire and a devil girl start boning down. The game will, when finished, also include visual novel story sections in between the banging, to help flesh out the stories of who all these excitable creatures are and what they're after. The game features a really cute art style reminiscent of games like Monster Prom, and looks worth keeping an eye on if you like your games a little bit explicit. Spooky Starlets is currently in development, with early builds available to those who support the game on Patreon. Paradise Killer, Kaizen Gameworks. Mystery-solving video games have existed almost as long as video games themselves, from early text-based adventures right through to the modern line of Danganronpa and Ace Attorney. One thing they usually have in common, however, is that there's only one right explanation for what happened. In Danganronpa, you might think you found a plausible version of events, but if you're not presenting the perfect piece of evidence at the perfect moment, revealing the absolute truth of events, then the game says you're wrong and stops progression. This is how a lot of these games end up working, and you can see why. Creating endless possibilities is a pretty steep ask. However, Paradise Killer aims to tackle that monumental task of subverting this idea. Paradise Killer is a non-linear murder mystery game, where you are never told if you've found the correct true answer to a mystery. You're only told if you found a satisfactory answer. It's up to you to explore the game's open world in a non-linear fashion, collect as many clues as you can, and form your own hypothesis. If you think you know what happened, present your case and your evidence. If you have enough evidence for a conviction, you'll get a conviction. But it's up to you to decide if you're confident there were no holes in your series of events. Having had a chance to sit down and play through some of the game at a convention late last year, the visual design, character design, and writing of the game all had me deeply excited. Much like games like Her Story, there's an exciting appeal in being allowed to, as a player, come up with your own conclusions, and debate them at length with others after the credits have rolled. Paradise Killer releases later this year. Say No More, Studio Fizbin. Say No More is a really simple and silly concept for a game. You're playing as someone who has been saddled with unfair and unrealistic demands. You have a single button. Use it to scream and no at your co-workers, your boss, basically anyone who tries to get in your way. While we've not yet seen much of the game, and don't really know where the narrative or gameplay might escalate to, there's something super endearing about a video game that encourages standing up for yourself and being more assertive. I'm certainly intrigued by the idea. Say No More releases on PC, Switch, and mobile later this year. Ephemeral Tale, Dawdling Dog. Ephemeral Tale is a turn-based dungeon crawler with a big focus on loot. Collect randomised gear during your adventure that has more of a substantial effect on how your character plays than simple stat increases. For example, one piece of gear might cause your character to automatically use potions, rather than take damage when attacked. Another might mean that when an enemy dies to magic, it explodes, damaging enemies near it. It's all about deciding which effects work for you. Ephemeral Tale releases later this month, and it looks pretty nice from the trailer, particularly the dynamic visuals applied during combat. "2D and Top D, Diet Zaribi." I think this year's award for Best Pun-Based Video Game Name has to go to 2D and Top D, a puzzle platformer where you switch between perspectives of the same level design. When playing as 2D, the game is treated mechanically as a two-dimensional side-scrolling perspective platformer, while playing as Top D changes that same level into a top-down perspective environment. This means in practice that you might have to push a block around as Top D to get it into place, then swap to 2D, where that block is now floating in the air and ready to act as a platform. The core gameplay idea is really smart, and I highly recommend watching some gameplay footage and getting a feel for how it works. 2D and Top D releases later this year. 12 Minutes, Luis Antonio. Revealed during E3 last year, and due to release sometime in 2020, 12 Minutes is an adventure game set in a time loop. You play as someone who keeps repeating the same 12 minutes of their life, starting at the dinner table, just prior to a violent break-in at their home, masqueraded as a visit from police. I've always been a sucker for time loop narratives, and the reveal trailer for 12 Minutes had all the stuff I love from the genre. Pump this directly into my veins as soon as possible. Arranged, Kaboot Games. Releasing at the end of this month, Arranged is a short visual novel about a woman facing an arranged marriage in Turkey. As a woman living in the UK, arranged marriages have always been a bit of a foreign concept to me. Having had a chance to play through this game ahead of its release, it does a really interesting job of putting players in the shoes of someone who might be living a very different life in a different country with a different set of religious and societal beliefs to yourself. It was a really interesting and insightful experience for understanding the practices and realities of a life very different to my own. Arranged doesn't glorify arranged marriages as always positive or healthy arrangements for those involved, but does contextualise why for some they might work, and the cultural beliefs surrounding the practice which might make the prospect appealing to some. Regardless of my own feelings about the practice, I felt like I better understood, after finishing, how someone might feel they have no options to escape from a marriage set forth in front of them. Don't take it personally, I just don't like you. Christian DaCosta. Another of this year's indie games with amazing titles, Don't Take It Personally, I Just Don't Like You, is a dating sim with a refreshing twist. In this game, not every NPC who you can invest time and niceness in will be interested in you in return. No matter how nice you are to some of the characters, no matter how much you give the answers they want to hear, sometimes you'll just have to be okay with romantic rejection. Handle that rejection in a healthy way, remain great friends, and show that you like your friends for more than their dateability potential. Don't Take It Personally has a really lengthy demo available online right now for free, which acts as a standalone prequel adventure and tone-setting piece. The demo is over an hour long, and does a great job of selling the tone and polish of the game. In the demo, you can play as a guy, gal, or non-binary pal, customize your pronouns, and date or make friends to your heart's content, all backed up by some wonderful lo-fi beats. Plot the downfall of capitalism while working out if the punk girl you're drinking with wants to bang you or just dismantle the system by your side. The dialogue writing in Don't Take It Personally is really delightful, charming, and does a wonderful job at selling what makes its characters tick. If you're interested, you can check out the demo right now. Creator Crate. Creator Crate Games. Creator Crate is a fast-paced, procedurally generated platformer about a little adorable robot that was created to absorb and recreate matter, but manages to break free from the lab it was made in, attempting a chaotic dash for freedom. I was able to go hands-on with an early build of Creator Crate earlier this week, and found the core gameplay loop really enjoyable. You run around levels grabbing items, throwing tables at guards trying to catch you, absorbing vending machines into yourself, using the absorbed matter to print guns, and leaping through levels as though your tiny robot freedom depended on it. It feels like there's a lot of mechanics at play to manage at once, but I'm interested to see what players more skilled than myself are able to do with the toolset in the game. Wayward Strand. Ghost Pattern. Set in an alternate version of 1978 rural Victoria, Australia, Wayward Strand sees you journey on a flying hospital ship as the 14-year-old daughter of the ship's head nurse. You've been brought on board for 3 days to help out in the nursing home wing of the hospital, and your job is simply to keep the residents company. Walk around a really gorgeous environment talking to NPCs as you see fit, getting to know the stories of the people there, and learning more about life for those living in care. Lena's Inception. Byton Studio. Releasing in Q1 of 2020, Lena's Inception is my most anticipated 2D Zelda-style game releasing this year. Of the many Zelda-inspired games I got emails about while putting together this video, this was easily the one that stuck with me most. Lena's Inception is an action-adventure game set in a world where the actual legendary hero destined to save the world died. Not as a result of the primary antagonist, but just an unexpected accident along the way. Now, you, as an NPC of no real consequence, must take up the mantle and adventure on in the hero's place. With the world starting to glitch apart, players can play through the full game in single-player or two-player co-op, as well as playing through the game with either a Game Boy Advance Zelda-inspired look, or with an optional art style designed to look more like the older Game Boy Zelda titles. The game also randomises certain elements each playthrough, like those Link to the Past randomizer ROM hacks that you might have seen, so there should be ample reason to play through more than once. A Potato Tale. Cerulean Games. Aiming to release on PC, PS4, Xbox One and Switch in early 2021. Yeah, I know this isn't 2020, but forgive me, I like games about cats. A Potato Tale is an adorable cat-based side-scrolling action-adventure game. There are loads of cat characters with different powers to recruit to your party, and a bunch of them wear cute little human clothes, and considering it's still a year out from being released, it looks really polished in trailers so far. The game features some pretty solid voice acting, and a soundtrack by video game-centric music creator Brentalfloss. Bree Goes to Hell. Cassidy DeLesso. Bree Goes to Hell is a fast-paced, free-running, side-scrolling platformer about two girlfriends trying to escape hell. You know how it is. God arbitrarily decides that your kind of love and attraction is a sin, you both go to hell, you disagree with the ruling, and you simply try to free-run your way out. Typical everyday occurrences. Development for the game is currently being funded on Patreon, which will apparently go towards funding additional goals such as ports to consoles. I had a chance to try out a short demo for the game earlier this week, and the best way to describe the feel was a mix between Super Meat Boy and a 2D perspective Mirror's Edge, complete with momentum-based wall scrambling techniques. You can find out more about the game by checking out its Patreon page. The Almost Gone. Happy Volcano. The Almost Gone is a narrative adventure game about a girl in limbo. Approximately 2 to 4 hours long, the game features gorgeous diorama-style visual design and attempts to tackle some emotionally complex themes. While there's a lot we don't yet know about The Almost Gone, the trailer was enough to get my attention. The game will be releasing later this year on PC, Switch, and mobile. Hero Hours Contract. S.O. Gorman Games. Releasing on Switch and PC later this year, Hero Hour's Contract is a turn-based strategy game about a trio of undercompensated magical girls. The game follows the story of three magical girls who, while gifted with magical powers that give them a moral obligation to fight evil, are woefully underpaid for what amounts to a dangerous, high-risk full-time job. The trio unionise, demanding better pay and working conditions, leading to a game that's half about fighting corporate zombies and half about actively trying to negotiate better rate based on the power of collective bargaining. From doing your best in combat to give yourself a better negotiation position, to drowning in 90s anime girl tropes, Hero Hour's Contract is easily one of my most anticipated games of 2020. The Hayseed Knight, Sandra Molina. Developed over the last 3 years by a solo developer handling art, writing, voice direction and coding, The Hayseed Knight is a visual novel about Ada, the one-eyed deer. He's a peasant who's not super smart. One-eyed deer, that name cracks me up. And has one dream, to eventually become a knight. The game features beautifully expressive art, really enjoyable character writing, and some top-notch voice performances, and is well worth checking out. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are out now and completely free, with Chapter 3 releasing this summer. Roki, Polygon Treehouse. Roki is a gorgeous-looking point-and-click adventure game set in a world filled with monsters. Rather than fighting the monsters to progress, your aim is to understand what's bothering them, try to help them be okay, and generally find non-confrontational means of getting them to let you continue. It's a sweet, charming-looking game based on Scandinavian folklore and developed by ex-Guerrilla Games staff. Refactor, Next-Gen Pants. The best way to describe Refactor is that it's a side-scrolling Metroidvania about rejected Tetris pieces. Yeah, wacky idea I know, but it seems like a really cool concept when you start to think about the specifics of it. The game is set in a factory where tetrominos are produced, for use in the game. When a piece is produced that isn't the correct shape, it's discarded for destruction, and this is where the game begins. You control a series of these discarded Tetris pieces, who each have unique abilities, trying to escape a world that wanted to destroy them for lacking utility. Trailers for the game have a real Thomas Was Alone vibe, capturing this idea of players are getting emotionally attached to functional, colourful rectangles and cubes. Also, the game keeps getting described in press releases as a Tetroidvania, and I can't stop admiring how good that pun feels to say. Inertial Drift, Northern Softworks. Due to release this spring on PC, PS4, Xbox One and Switch, Inertial Drift is a Ridge Racer style arcade racer. What makes this one unique? The drifting system. Basically, while driving, you've got your left stick steering your car, but your right analog stick is fully dedicated to controlling drifting, meaning that you've got unexpectedly good control of exactly how you want to turn. The game has a really eye-catching cel-shaded visual style, and seems like it could be a lot of fun. Table Manners, Curve Digital. Releasing very soon, and we're talking very early 2020 soon, the pitch for Table Manners is pretty simple. It's basically Surgeon Simulator, but for chaotic first dates. Try to pour a bottle of wine, maybe risk torching a creme brulee, all without accidentally throwing your meal on the floor and setting fire to the tablecloth. Deliberately obtuse controls make even the simplest task difficult to do without embarrassing yourself in front of a cutie. And there you go, that's my top 24 most anticipated indie games of 2020 and one of 2021 because I just really like potato-shaped cats. Are there any games that you're excited about this year from indie developers that I didn't talk about in this video? Well then, let me know either down in the comments or maybe if you're a developer and you want me to pay attention to your game, drop me an email at LauraKBuzzOfficial@gmail.com because I like games, and I don't know about all of them. There's too many of them, so tell me about the cool ones. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to support the creation of more work like this, please consider supporting me with $1 or more a month on Patreon at patreon.com/LauraKBuzz.